and we're live, Khalid and I. Now, Khalid, where are you now? Because you're a bit of a jet setter. You go from continent to continent, and I'm not really sure where you are at the moment.
I digitally go content every day because I teach online with people in different places, England, Europe, places in Africa and stuff like that. Yeah, but I'm currently physically in Jordan.
And things are, how are they in Jordan?
They're really good. Things are incredibly cheap. People are super friendly. I do get a little bit bored. I don't have enough deep English conversations. I'm going to be going tonight back to, or tonight or this evening, to meet a friend in the capital. I've kind of moved into a little village outside the capital. But yeah, otherwise it's really good.
Did you miss Speaker's Corner from time to time? That was how we met.
I'm really a forward-looking kind of person, so I don't really miss things. And one of the reasons why I didn't Speaker's Corner was good for having lots of available people to talk to. That's good, and but the quality of the conversations are sometimes really low. Like they just argue for no reason, or
Yes.
But you get a lot of views, and you get a lot of call it aggressive debate, maybe, which is good for videos. But I'm not that
Yes, and
interested in that.
shouting people.
Shouty people or just tactical people. So when I was there last, I mean, it's not all like that really, but the big YouTubers are not very honest people. They're just playing games. They're trying to get views and trying to make a name for themselves. So I think the last person I talked to there was Rashid, whatever his name was. So-called, he is a historian, but he wouldn't answer my question. It was like, what does this verse of Quran mean? What does this? I'd like literally had said it 7 times. He refused to answer it because he knew he couldn't answer. It would be basically against the whole Sunni belief system. That you're not supposed to call other people. Adnan Rashid. That's him. So and I'm not really.
By Daniel Haqiqatjou.
Sorry.
He's been denounced by Daniel Haqiqatjou for being a Wahhabi, it seems. I think I sent you a video about that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I just don't. I'm not into so what sort of thing. I'm like really practical person. So the reason why I bring up don't call Muslims are always calling other people non-Muslims, even though the Quran is really clear and like don't do it. And there's a really good reason because, well, 2 good reasons. The infighting is really bad, that you kill each other, but they're so disunited, which is why the Zionists are winning. So there's so many. I only talk about things that I think are practically important, and so. Maybe it matters that somebody's a Wahhabi, but then whatever his name, that other guy, I can't even say his name right. What was his name?
Daniel Haqiqatjou. Well,
yeah,
I suppose it kind of shows how uninterested you are in politics. But anyway, for anybody who's interested, Daniel Haqiqatjou is this Persian Muslim who was Shia and converted to Sunni Islam, and now he's promoting something called Islamism, and presumably that is to bring about greater Muslim unity. And he is denouncing the Wahhabis for being divisive and ganging up against him and asking him what his Aqidah is. And he doesn't see the point of it other than to be a shill for Zionists to divide the Ummah in general.
Okay, so I think he's probably going about it the wrong way then. Just don't denounce this group or that group, but just try to, don't be so. It sounds like, maybe because I'm just going by what you're saying, so I could be wrong, but wouldn't it be better just to say, hey guys, can we agree on this, rather than, oh, you're a hobby, you're terrible, because then you'll be just going to the next group and just saying you're terrible, and then at the same time you're trying to supposedly create unity. Doesn't add up. It's not a very smart way to create unity.
He's referring to people who have been associated with him and have subsequently denounced him over what he thought was a trivial matter, and then after that refused to engage with him or debate with him because they know they're going to lose, because Daniel is a very eloquent promoter of Islam. So
yeah, I would say a lot of those speakers' corners. Actually, I don't know. Even Daniel, I'm not sure. He could probably lose the debate quite easily if it's against the truth. But I've come across so many of the top speakers' corner YouTubers, and off camera, they're like, "Oh, please don't record. I don't want to talk about this thing, Ahmadiyya or Islam, whatever," because they can't. It's the Quran is really clear. Don't call each other non-Muslims, and then big thing is, all these Sunni Muslims feel they have to call Ahmadi Muslims non-Muslims, and yeah, but that's how they get views as well, by being aggressive. And if they were like all understanding and whatever, then they'll lose face amongst Sunni Muslims, because unfortunately Sunni Islam, at least on YouTube or something, or Speaker's Corner, is very aggressive, I would say. Unless they're talking to white people and then they're suddenly polite. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. Something like that.
yeah, and I suppose Speaker's Corner these days is polarized between well, there's a Muslim center and a Christian corner, and so I mean, it seems to me to be an organic reflection of people's real concerns, because I used to go when people were talking about capitalism and communism. So I'm assuming that the people who do go are genuinely concerned about the subjects that they want to argue with strangers about. So obviously religion is topmost of their mind, and this is also reflected on X Spaces.
I think it's something else, actually. It's not just it's how strongly people believe in whatever they claim, right? So all the people who are talking about communism and whatever, it's not just that they are disappearing. Okay, firstly, it's only Muslims who strongly believe in what they say. They go out and they'll debate you, and that's like almost every Muslim, even if they're not able to debate, they are like, they believe in their faith way more than any Christian would, for example, right? And then, like, when it comes to like communism or whatever, right? Let's say you're a communist, therefore you don't believe in God. And I've noticed all the people who don't really believe in God or don't have a firm belief in God, they keep having like mental breakdowns or something, and then they can't really maintain like a live debate or something. That's what it just seems to happen a lot, that a lot of the non-Muslims have like weak mental stability.
Yes,
I'm
because
just saying
they're not
that's what.
really sure about anything. I mean, you were talking about Christians, and I've heard all these debates, and basically, Islam is the more logical, easily defendable belief system compared to Christianity, because Christians are actually required to believe that Jesus is God. Well,
There's just a few.
the Muslim system is quite logical.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I remember.
If there exists an omnipotent God that created the universe, why wouldn't he be able to send messages to humanity? Why wouldn't he?
There's so
so
many. Yeah. Christianity is a nightmare to defend, like the Trinity, like 3 = 1. That's just like, what do you like? You have to.
Stupid for defending it.
So
right?
you have to.
I mean, because it's such an absurdity, you would feel stupid for having to, lawyers, they can get, a very strong case, and then it's a pleasure to defend it because all the arguments come and they are all accepted. But if you're, given a hopeless case to defend, then you kind of feel like, oh, I'm an intellectual prostitute. I'm expected to defend this absurd story, and I feel really, cheap and dirty and low for doing it. And I'm sure a lot of them, do end up feeling that. It's like they can't explain what, and fundamentally there is this unspoken desire to, just go back to the religion of their ancestors when their ancestors were powerful and slew Muslims and Jews in the Levant, which gave them a sense of power, and they want to do that again. I mean, that's all it means, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but
even the nice ladies you who are Christian that you meet, I forget her name now, Mary, I think it was. I
yeah.
think she's a very nice lady, and I'm not saying she wants to be a crusading knight, but somehow at the back of their minds, they want to be powerful again. And be capable of these things again, and now they feel they are the ones being invaded by Muslims, and their government doesn't care about them. And in
So
fact,
yeah, Mary's an interesting character. She's not one of the usual. So but Mary's, I don't know how we describe her, but mainly she believes that powerful forces are secretly putting things into the Bible, and that's how she explains all the contradictions in the Bible. And her best friends are Muslims. She's liked by Muslims in some ways, but then she gets frustrated every now and then when we point out problems in the Bible. I don't know, but at the
the Mandela effect. Has she mentioned the Mandela effect? Because that is part and parcel of the conspiracy theorist list of favorite topics. Maybe you haven't heard of it.
I keep hearing it and then I forget it. What does it mean again?
It's basically things are being, the narratives that you remembered distinctly are having a few words changed here and there, and they've changed the records, and you go back to it and it says something a little different to what you remembered it as, and sinister forces are afoot to subvert your belief system, that kind of thing. And I had this argument with this person who wanted to believe in it, and I was saying, why do you want to believe in it? Because it must be so demoralizing. So why do you want to believe in this crap? To make, that these evil forces, and they're changing history, and changing history books, and changing, newspaper reports and books, history books of events. Why do you want to believe in that? And thank God for the Quran and the Bible, where at least most people will have a pretty good memory of what these books said.
Yeah, it's some. I suppose it's a bit like what you're saying. Like, either you want to go back to a time when Christianity actually had power, and you're basically a deep down racist, and you don't want to move on to the so-called brown religion of Islam. Something weird like that. I don't know what it is, but even Mary has mental breakdowns every now and then. It's quite common. Like, she can't defend most of her ideas really. But she's been nice, and she's kind of like, okay, so she's that one category where, like, I've had some debates and she ended up agreeing with things, and then she realized she's agreeing too much and started getting upset, because it was just like, you follow the logic and you get in trouble if you're a Christian. But then most people, there's hardly any Christians really out there. There's like Bob, whatever
Bob
they
the
call
Builder.
him. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was his real name. I mean, not his real name, but his
YouTube channel, and his trigger. His X username is
Bob the Builder. Is it?
Yes,
Okay.
Bob the Builder. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he seems to be paid by somebody. He's like a lone whatever guy there. And then you might say, oh, what about all these? There's a few women running around, and people say they get paid on, like, seriously, some of them.
Tash?
Oh yeah, she's just obviously paid by somebody, and she comes every now and then, but she's really got nothing to say useful. Her thing is just controversy. Just go with the Quran, put a hole in it, and cause some trouble, and possibly get some views. That's just like, she's another outlier, really far where there's nothing really going up there in the head besides causing trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's a few ladies out there who really don't know much, and people claim they just get paid for that. Like, basically, they're drug addicts, and well, at least one of them looks like that, and I feel sorry for her because she looks like a drug addict. So she basically has to do this to get her cocaine, apparently, and she looks pretty miserable when people say that, because it seems to be the truth. So my point is that there really aren't many Christians there. There's a few, I think, like, you know, these kind of Americans who haven't talked to anybody outside in the real world or debated and really realized how stupid the idea of Christianity is. So there's kind of a few of those, and then they probably have a debate and realize how stupid it is and then never come back. But I wouldn't say there are many Christians really out there. The number of there isn't much out there, and then there's a few people who believe the world is flat and other stuff, and so I don't really miss and when I was going there, I was just kind of go like, most 50% of it would be people saying you should be dead because I'm an Ahmadi Muslim, like other Muslims, right? And then I say, okay, say that on camera and debate me, and then they'll run. Like that would be most of them, including, and then even the top YouTubers couldn't. So it's kind of really lame. And I kind of got bored. And I kind of wanted to talk to a whole variety of people. Like if you're vegan or something, why do you do that? But even though there's a lot of people, most of them are not of high quality, in short.
Yes. I mean, I've met, quite a few people that I knew before who would, I suppose, be described as members of the dissident right. And I mentioned to you, I think somebody was complaining about dust. So, there are a few stock characters that are, kind of known for their position.
Dust is a really good example of somebody who doesn't really believe in God and then has I don't want to be too insulting as a friend, I guess, but this is like the short version. Like if you don't believe in God, you're going to have like mental instabilities. If you see some of my videos, you'll see that. And he collapses, and then he gets upset, and then he stops wanting to debate me. So that's what's happening, basically. All the atheists are just like dying out and they're like mentally having problems. They can't read debate, and there's none of them left.
So that they know they've lost the argument, because I mean that there are senior Christian priests like Gavin Ashenden who were so disgusted with the Queen's friendliness towards Muslims that he converted to Catholicism, and now he's got a YouTube channel and he's on X, and he basically advises his followers not to debate with Muslims because they're going to lose. Isn't that interesting? So it's sort of like, if you ever meet the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury and you want to argue about the Trinity and whether Christianity is idolatry, they will never debate you. They will say, I'll speak to you about the matter privately, but, really, I'm not going to go public on that. And it is because they never had a proper defense to it, because their only way of winning the argument was to convict you of heresy and burn you at the stake. And now that they can't do that, they're an open goal. They have nothing more than a lot of words that will bore you and make no sense.
The thing is, this is a very common problem. As soon as I debated one most famous Muslim and then never wanted to debate me, it's like once they lose and they know they've got no hope. This is just like everybody who it's all too common, is what I'm trying to say, is that most people are not there for the truth, especially in Speaker's Corner. And like you do see, like if you watch YouTube clips, you think, oh, these guys are really like wise people, but they select like stupid people to debate and they easily win. I don't want to be too insulting, but there's one Ahmadi Muslim who like has no idea how to debate, and these YouTubers, big YouTubers, always go to him, but they would avoid like talking to me or something. So it's all a bit rubbish, really. So I don't really miss it too much. But in some ways, it's nice to have this ready supply of people who would like to debate if they don't know you, and then they debate and they run away once they see you again, sort of thing.
But I get the impression that the people who they don't know that they've lost a debate. That's even more frustrating. It's like, yeah, you think you won the debate, but I suppose, are there objective criteria for saying, in this engagement between, person A and person B, who won? I mean, there should be
Well,
objective criteria, and this is what I want to, you know,
I think there
establish.
are really, but it's actually quite. If you've got a well-structured debate based on some sort of very clear logical argument, it's quite easy to see who's won. You say,
Yeah, they
here's
don't
this.
even title it properly, right? I mean, that's even more frustrating. It's like Christian v Muslim, and it's like, well, no, it's got to be a proposition. Do you even know what a proposition? I'm not asking you. I'm sure you do, but it would be, a question or a statement, right? A proposition is, is Christianity idolatry? I want to, I keep telling these Muslims this is how you win the debate, because they have no defense. Christianity is idolatry. How can they explain it away? They can't.
I don't. I mean, first of all, Christianity is not a problem. It's already dead, right? I mean,
No, but they have to accept it. They have to accept it and acknowledge it, and because otherwise they'll just carry on, right? They'll just carry on. We still have a religion. Look at our beautiful cathedrals, blah blah blah, and the monarchy.
All these cathedrals are empty, or just got a couple of old people in it, and that's about it. And then there's just a few ceremonies when the king becomes a king, and that's about it. I don't think that's the problem. I think maybe there's a bit of confusion with Buddhism or something. Like people go, "Oh, I want to be spiritual without a religion" or something. I don't know, but
no, they don't understand their own history. It's like, I mean, even now people complain like, oh, in a previous time we had more liberty. It's like, no, you didn't have more liberty in the time when anybody born in Britain had to be either Catholic or Anglican. And if you were the wrong kind of Christian, you're going to be kicked around and discriminated against. They don't know that. I mean, just because I did these subjects at school, so I have some kind of an idea. And churches were places of indoctrination that you had to attend, and if you didn't attend church, people would notice that you weren't there. You're not a regular churchgoer. You're probably not respectable. You're probably a bit of a deviant, and sometimes they fine you. And the American Revolution, I think, was sort of educated people say, what do I have to pretend that I believe that in the Trinity, i.e. that Jesus is God, in order to be respectable? And if I say I don't, I won't be able to get into the best universities. It's that sort of idea that I think caused the founding fathers to have the American Revolution.
Okay. So, do you want to tell me or explain? I mean, I'm interested in something you said about shaming people and having standards in the old days in the West. And this is why I tell Christians to at least follow Christianity. And I caught Bob the Builder out on this. I said, like, what are you doing? Like, do you believe in the Sabbath? Like, you shouldn't be doing this. Why are you here then? Why are you? Because Speaker's Corner is only on Sundays, when they shouldn't be there in the first place. So I do tell Christians to be good Christians, and I think it would benefit them. So that's an interesting discussion. Even there's got lots of contradictions, and I wouldn't go for it because it's really hard to follow something that isn't true. But and so when I had second thoughts when I said Christianity is dead, because it seems to be alive in strange ways, like that Tucker, what's his name? Tucker
Carlson.
Tucker Carlson. He's a Christian. It's really weird, kind of like he's intelligent and not intelligent at the same time. Like, oh no, they blew. What did he say? Like, Christianity is the only peaceful religion. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, on what basis do you say that? And he makes lots of dumb arguments, but then the more he talks to intelligent people, I think it's like he for all his time, and what was he doing? Fox News and all these stupid propaganda machines. He didn't seem to have many intelligent conversations, but now he's got his own channel and he's coming across actual normal conversations. He's slowly becoming wiser and not anti-Islam, and stuff like that. You know what I
Well,
mean?
what they say is his papa was CIA, so actually he's just pretending not to know, what really goes on, in the secret services. I forget now. Somebody was
I mean,
saying he must have known because his papa was CIA.
well, okay, that's interesting. Okay, so he's said that all these news agencies are part of the CIA, all the whatever, right?
Well,
So
yeah, I think it would make sense because if I was CIA, well, I'd want to control global media. So you just
yeah.
have to,
So are you
have a
saying
word
he's
in the.
still CIA or he's
No,
ex-CIA
no,
or?
okay, I don't know what topic it was, but there was something about whether Tucker knew or didn't, and somebody said he must have known because how could he not know about this if his father was CIA? And I don't know
Really?
what the topic was, but okay, I'm not CIA, but I'm saying if I were CIA, of course I'd control global media,
Oh yeah, yeah.
by having a word with editors of all these media outlets, right?
I don't think people even deny this kind of stuff, right? It's all controlled. Like you call it CIA or not, everybody knows all these mainstream media is controlled. It's such old news that nobody's even debating it really, except for mainstream media maybe, or they don't even debate it, do they? They
They
pretend like.
probably work on YouTube and X and all the others. That is probably a condition of being able to operate. That you have a CIA person overseeing your activities, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's already being done. But I mean, it doesn't matter because it's like we still have to say what we mean and make sound arguments that are comprehensible to people so they can act on it. And fundamentally, it's all about making arguments that people can understand and act on.
To tell me what you so the reason I brought up Tucker Carlson was like, I'm wondering to what extent is Christianity still alive? Is it alive in
No,
America or something?
I have to say it's dead because it's only when you say it's dead, it's died in your home. If you don't bury it, it's gonna not be good for the residents in the house and spread disease. You have to take it out and bury it. And if you
It
don't,
should be. I'm just wondering to what extent people still believe in it. Like, do you think
they
Tucker
don't.
Carlson
They,
really
they
believes it?
cling to it because it's the religion of their ancestors, and they don't know what else. And they hate Muslims, and
So
and
Tucker
and that's what.
Carlson is a hater deep down.
Well, I mean, he's actually talked about being Episcopalian, and he's saying, it's a religion with the weakest belief system, and it's kind of true. It's just a cultural and ancestral affiliation. Because I've spoken to middle class, well, upper middle class English people who call themselves Anglicans, and immediately, just upon meeting them, they say, "Oh, but what does it all mean anyway?" Anglicanism and blah blah. So the moment you meet them and you're introduced to them and you talk to them about Anglicanism, they sort of say it doesn't mean anything. And it's
Hmm.
just like they're only pretending to believe in it because they are white upper middle class and still go to church, and maybe their kids go to are members of the choir or something, and you know
Yeah, I think that's all
it's
there
a
is left.
class
It's like it's
affiliation.
exactly. Or it's a social. You can call it class affiliation or a social thing, whatever. So it's the social reasons to be part of Christianity. It's a white club, let's say, and at least in the UK, for the few people who claim to be Christian, I really struggle to find people who are Christian, so claim to be Christian. But then the example I can think of that I really have to struggle. This is like a student or a family that lived out in the sticks, right? And they knew Ahmadi Muslims because we've got a big center there. And they really hate the Bible. So like this person loved, didn't believe in gender norms, that you could be basically a trans, there's no such thing as a male or female, and really hated the Bible itself, but liked being Christian because they were allowed them to be part of a group. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so they can imagine wanting to be part of the congregation and Sunday school and all the church activities, but they can't imagine themselves being a member of a mosque. And this is what alienates them. And this is, I guess, one of the things I wanted to impress upon you, that they can't imagine themselves being happy, mixing with a bunch of immigrants. That's really their thing, right?
Mm. All
Um,
right.
but it's a class thing because I mean, I've been to East London Mosque and joined their new Muslim circle and found that to my surprise there were a lot of working class girls complaining about Muslim men, teasing them for being a hijabi because they wanted to attract a nice Muslim husband. And they made jokes about that. And I also found, to my great surprise, Polish women wanting to convert other Polish women to Islam. That was the great surprise of all. But
That's
you see,
interesting
yeah. So women
because
join
Polish.
to find a good husband. And now we know that there are more Western women converting to Islam than there are Western men. So what must Western men do if they want to find a wife? They have to convert too. That is, I think, what the situation is.
Yeah, that is logical because it's only really Muslims who have set kind of the standards so that they can be marriageable, isn't it? Yeah. So you like if you're a Christian, you don't know if there's any standard there, and then people don't realize you have to have standards to be married. Like you can't be like, oh, I feel like being married one second and not the other. You've got to have clear rules and everything, and that's what Westerners hate. And then the other thing you said about you think there's a pattern with Polish women wanting to convert to Islam, or and that kind of
Because they
makes
want
sense.
a husband and they want their children to be legitimate. It's like
Yeah,
that's all we want. Because if we just hang around with white boys, they're just going to pump and dump us and leave us holding the baby and move on to someone else. And that's what
yeah,
they do.
and
But these women know what they don't want, and that's why
yes, because they
the
haven't
white working
been
class women
liberal.
are the early converters.
Yeah, they haven't been liberal for a very long time, so they haven't lost track of reality. Let's say, like a lot of Western women, like just there's no sense in what they're saying. Like we want to be free to do anything we want. We want a husband to do whatever we want. Like the husband shouldn't be liberal, but we should be liberal. It makes no sense, right? But from the Polish neighbors I've had, Polish friends I've had, they seem to have a connection with religion. They still go to church, Sunday schools, even though they're really not religious. Like they do lots of weird stuff, like sexual habits, whatever. Got to know them. So it's like they're not religious really, but they still have kind of, because they've come out from Eastern Europe, which has been religious, or I don't know, hasn't been exposed to too much. They haven't really been away from Christianity for a long time, and then so they still have some sort of Christian values being, I don't know, don't
Yeah, but
sleep around or something.
yeah, maybe they just want to go to church and speak Polish to other Polish people. Maybe it's just as basic as that, right? And make connections and, you know, um,
Yeah.
I mean, language is also an aspect of our identity. I think, because you
Yeah.
can, effortlessly communicate with people, other English speakers if you're an English speaker or, French
Yeah.
speaker or whatever. So, it's the different aspects of our, identity. And I think we must be ruthless about just impressing upon these people who are forever whinging about Muslims and Jews that, the reason why you're always whinging about these people with their religion, Judaism and Islam, is because you haven't got one that you really believe in. And that's why you're easy to, manipulate and lie to and threaten and bribe. And that's why you see power and status slipping away, because you don't even do what any rational person would do if they want their group to stay in existence, which is to marry and have children and bring them up according to whatever tradition they are. And
Mm.
um, so I suppose white people in particular, it's like they haven't thought about this for centuries, right? They really haven't. And
Yeah.
and one of the things I do say is that Christendom entered in 1918, which is that if you accept that Christianity is to defend the divine right of kings, and it was only useful to monarchs, European monarchs who basically owned everything under in their kingdom, including the people, including the property of the people. So if you look at English history, it's basically people rebelling against the king, starting with the barons who saying, "Oh, hey, king, you just can't, you know, um, make us pay taxes without even consulting us, calling parliament. You can't just come and take our stuff. No, 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 we're not going to." And then, there was a Magna Carta and all the other stuff that is sort of big in English history. And then eventually these rights, this idea of human rights trickled down to the commoner. And then we started talking about the right to property. But,
Mm.
in reality, in the olden days, the king could come and, could sign your death warrant without explaining very much. You wouldn't even have a right to trial, you
So
know.
in the old days, Christianity worked because you had a dictatorship, you had no choice, and that's how it worked. And people always fighting against it. Deep down, they didn't really believe in it, I guess. What is the topic? Do you think Muslim apologist is asking? What is the topic about?
Well, I'm just going to riff from one topic to another without,
Okay,
it's sort of
let's
related
since we
to,
talk
whatever we were talking about. Oh,
so since you talk about Polish women, this is an interesting one. I was teaching a Polish women's kids. I'm a private tutor. I've been doing it for many years, and you've been to our in Muslim convention, and all her kids went to the convention as well. And the short version is something like this. She was always really aggressively against Islam. We'd have discussions. She would know she's wrong because I keep explaining all her. But for so many years, she loves staying in contact. She would, before I moved to Jordan, she would come to our house because she had no other friends. And what else does this say? Her kids love staying in contact. Her kids have traveled around the world. One's in Japan, one's in what's it called, France, and moving to Brazil and stuff like that. So, and she's tried to kill herself twice. She's a really high-powered business lady, but money's never really made her happy. So it's an interesting example, I guess, of Polish women that somehow there's some, maybe she's older, and I think she's had many husbands, and one of the first husbands was an Egyptian man or something. So some sort of interest in Islam, Muslim men or something, I'm not sure. But also an aggressively against it, and at the same time realizing she's got nothing. All her ideas on Buddhism, she was really into Buddhism for a bit. Though that doesn't work, and only Islam seems to work. And some sort of weird a weird love-hate relationship would be a summary of what I would say is going on with her. So, what are your thoughts
yes.
about that?
Well, I was thinking of this Texan woman on X that I know who's always hanging around with the Muslim bros, but she's still insisting that she's Christian, but she's obviously enjoying the attention, and of course all the Muslim men want to convert her, but she can't be reasoned with, and she talks over them and whatever. But I see that they can't win the argument, but I guess it's like watching a car crash, or something that there's this irresistible fascination. So they can't win the argument, and they sort of know it's only when I accept your arguments that I will come along with you. But I have in my power the ability to withhold my submission to you, and I guess you have to be unreasonable to take that position, because reasonable people will say, well, if you've made all the correct arguments, I can't think of a better argument than yours to not do as you suggest. So I have to reluctantly come along with you. Not many people are like that. Right, they'll say, well, you and whose army are going to make me do this thing. I mean,
well, I think if she thinks she has some power, she doesn't realize she's just being used by Muslims for content to get other people to convert. Like, she didn't have to convert; she's just easy target, and she's probably going to keep losing debates, and then they're going to make a nice video out of it, and loads of people are going to go, "Oh, right, I get why." Another million reasons why Christianity doesn't make sense, or whatever that lady is, that Texan lady. Maybe can I ask, or I can invite the Muslim apologist to simply ask a question. We can do that. I quite enjoy. I thought that our last stream was particularly good because people were, not even asking questions, like either throwing insults or whatever. And you can even join in on camera or whatever you want. Yeah,
yes,
I like
I
answering
know
questions.
Muhammad.
Yeah, okay, cool.
But hopefully he will join. But yes, he was thinking of coming to Speaker's Corner, but it didn't really happen.
Cool.
Oh, right, he's only watching.
Yeah, feel free to ask a question. We can talk about it. I think you'll find Muslim apologists that will have. I certainly come with a different perspective. Anyway, I'm an Ahmadi Muslim, and I think it's more logical and less aggressive and more united than most Muslims. Most Muslims are like, "Oh, this person's a piece of whatever, terrible person. Everybody's terrible." Like, I try to find some unity at least. Jews are our what's this? The doctor. Jews are our misfortune.
He has certain tropes that he likes to post. So
yeah. Oh, okay. That's his standard thing, is it?
So yeah, I think you know where he's going. But yes, I keep trying to explain to these people, okay, I can't even begin a conversation, even a philosophical conversation like, what do you think is the nature and purpose of religion? Do you think it might be to frighten women of childbearing age and men of fighting age to marry each other and have legitimate children, and then to frighten them into not divorcing each other when they get bored and irritated with each other? That is the purpose of religion. But some religions are, have their
that is a function of religion, and that's a very important function of religion, to keep humanity going, because without marriage, humanity doesn't really go. And we can see, people might think marriage, in the West we say marriage is just a piece of paper. No, actually, all those people who think marriage is just a piece of paper, they don't stay married and they don't have kids. And I would argue they go towards porn and therefore pedophilia. I mean, are you aware that pedophilia is rising really quickly in the West?
Well, yes, in a way, it's predictable that, if vanilla sex is widely available, there'll be people who think, well, what about chocolate sex, chili sex, extreme sex, and they will be, pushing at the boundaries for more exotic forms of sex.
Yeah, but okay, what happens with pornography is that you start off with kind of ordinary pornography, and then, because it's generally not satisfying, it's 2D, it's not real, is it? Right? So you're just going to go, okay, well, that wasn't satisfying, I got bored of that, I need the next level, until like you go to that extreme,
until you become a porn star.
But then at some point you want to do something physical and real. And I suppose my theory is why pedophilia is increasing so rapidly, especially in America, is that kids are easy to target.
Well, yes, people go for the low-hanging fruit. That won't say no to them. But I think fundamentally, it is the desire to be remembered. It's like, I was first. that kind of thing. And actually, women do it too. And this is why you keep hearing of these very attractive married female teachers having sex with, their male students. Why do they do that? I mean, can't you get sex from
Is
your
that
husband,
is
your
that a common
boyfriend?
thing? I can't I can imagine with all the sexless marriages in the West. I mean, the few Western marriages that are left, they're not of a particularly high standard and sexless. They're not having many kids, so maybe they're bored, and also their husbands are liberal, which is not very exciting for a woman. I think at a biological level, a woman wants a masculine man, not a feminine man, right? Okay, if they, do you know what I mean? It's
They've already
biologically.
made a movie of that with Judy Dench. I don't know if you know that, about a
What
teacher
happened
having
to Judy
sex with his
Dench?
about having sex, a married teacher having sex with her student, with Judy Dench, set in Hampstead Heath. It's
Sorry,
called,
is there a movie about it or something?
yes, this was years ago. It's
Oh,
called
okay.
The Something Papers. I'll find it for you. But yeah, I watched it. That was years ago.
Sure. I mean, I don't know how
There's
common that is, but I can
Lolita, which is,
imagine.
it goes back even, you know.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, schools are very about 1 million rules in schools, so I kind of see that as being slightly difficult, unless maybe in these kind of, what they call it, those schools where you stay. I forget all sorts of really obvious words. The schools where you have to boarding schools. That's the one.
yeah,
Okay,
and yeah.
maybe
So
weird
there
stuff
would
can
be.
happen there, but
That's right.
yeah, but I can understand it at the level that there's so many sexless marriages that makes it possible. But then again, there's so many rules in normal schools, like not the boarding schools. I don't know what happens at boarding schools, is basically what I'm saying. So I think that's a bit of it difficult. I don't think that's. Are you claiming that this is a common thing that female teachers regularly have sex with their male students in normal schools?
Well, okay. If you just Google these reports, in this country and in America, there'll be quite a few of them. That's what I'm saying. Um,
Okay.
so you would have thought, well, these women, they can always have sex with
Hmm.
men, and not that males, not their students. But why do they take that risk? And I suppose I concluded that they just wanted to be remembered as being the first. So while men
It could
want to
be.
have virgins, right? Women also kind of, the particularly the promiscuous ones. It's like, well, I've been so promiscuous. Nobody, even remembers me anymore. But the one who first,
Oh yeah,
preferred to be remembered if I was the first one for this, male kind of
it does
idea.
make sense. For there's loads of women who are going to their 40s, they're not in relationships, so they're not married, and they want attention. I can see that. Like, that just reminds me of a video I just watched with Katy Perry, like that pop star, and she does this American Idol, I think it is, whatever it is, and this person said, like, I don't know, he's almost 30 years old, and he goes, I've never been in a relationship, never kissed a person, and she calls him over and kisses him on the lip, basically, and so I can imagine there's bored people who are not in relationships and have no standards, like they don't care about who they're kissing or something. They think it's funny. So I can imagine women like that doing it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah.
maybe I think the important thing to say about that is that it's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your future relationships if you don't think it matters who you kiss. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I just do whatever I want. It doesn't matter. It means nothing, sort of thing. Then how can, like, if nothing means nothing, then you're just an animal. You can just do anything you want and nobody can trust you. And that's why there aren't relationships with Westerners, because especially let's say Western women, there's no standard, there's no trust. because nothing matters or something. So
Well, it's disposable. The relationships are treated as disposable. And
yeah.
I'm trying to say that, for people who respect the practice of marriage, it's sort of like you're only supposed to choose once your sex partner, who will also be the other parent of your legitimate offspring, and you're expected to stick with that choice for the rest of your life. That was the rule in the time of our grandparents and parents, right? That was a rule, even though, people did get divorced and, had affairs, etc. That was a rule, and that was generally understood. And now it's generally denied.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think human beings are not good at making choices. So when they have less choices, like you're kind of describing, you just marry the person you're told to, it's actually fine. Okay. Because first of all, you just make it work because you don't have a choice. Do you know what I mean? Like if you have infinite choices, you're always thinking, what if, and really, this might sound terrible for the average Westerner, but it doesn't really matter really how the other person looks. Like if you want to marry a woman, all you really need from her is regular amounts of sex. Really sounds terrible. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think we should kind of, maybe marry within our own league, right? So in the olden days, it's like if you were working class, you would be expected to marry somebody within your own class. You can't be, dreaming of marrying the prince when you're a pauper, or just
Oh
a
yeah,
peasant.
there's all this stupidity about all these really fat people like coming on these podcasts saying, I want to marry a millionaire and I don't accept anything less than a millionaire. Like that's some level of stupidity I don't really understand yet. But besides that, I'm just saying people don't need to be picky about who they marry. There's not like a perfect person. In fact, you have to make the relationship work. It's not that. Do you get it? I mean, do you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, you want a comfortable life where you can feel safe being at home, and not that your worst enemy is sharing your bed with you, saying mean things and, wanting to hurt your feelings. And, you want, somebody you're happy to spend time with when you're, not doing exciting
Let me ask you
things
a
and run the
direct
household
question.
with.
Let me ask you a direct question based on what I just said. Assuming everybody's in your same league, you're not like an ordinary person trying to marry a billionaire or millionaire or something stupid like that. Does it really matter how a person looks like?
Well, the female would have to be found to be attractive by the male, because if he doesn't fancy her, it's not going to work. He won't,
This is the thing. Okay, here's an interesting thing. I mentioned probably what's her name? Saadia Khan, psychologist. I probably mentioned it a couple of times, right? Because she seems to be aware of different kind of categories of men. How would I put it, right? There's some people who maybe don't get much attention from women, and they're always like, how do you describe it? Fantasizing about women, like, oh, if she only had this and whatever. But if you get I think a reasonable amount of attention, you stop caring about, is it blonde hair, red hair, whatever, and just, is this a decent human being? I think it's something like that. So maybe that's where I'm coming from. It's like, it kind of doesn't matter to me anyway. It's like, are you going to have sex with me at least, I'm not going to say how many times I need, but like X amount of time, and that's it.
You're not your priorities, right? It could be sex or cooking or, running the household or, being helping you with your business or whatever. So and different people have different things that are important to them, but they have to be honest about what they
think. I want to turn into a question and get to a point. Like, not what do you think? Does it really matter? Do looks really matter? I think, I'm going to be really crass. Like, you just need to have boobs, a vagina, have sex a certain number of times. I don't really care. Most women are fine. And I've
Right.
had a
Well,
lot of
that's
all sorts of.
comfortably low. So you're
I've
going
had
to
like
find.
no shortage of attention from different kind of women, right?
Mm.
But it's not important. It kind of gets boring once you see beyond it. Like you've got like you can have a supposedly good-looking woman who's got so many mental problems, and you can see it from a mile away. What people call red
They'll be
flags.
high maintenance, the attractive
Yeah,
ones,
so it's
right?
like it's just and
Entitled.
even the so-called attractions because they've got tons of makeup on and they spend ages on their appearance. And maybe if you're mature enough and you can see through it and you can see the red flags, then you like it's just not attractive to me. That like all the
Mm.
mental problems. Like, do you know what I mean? So I maybe I'm looking for different things.
Yeah, and I suppose you need to know what you want before you can choose the right partner, right? But if you don't know what you want, then of course you're going to choose the wrong partner because they'll turn out not to be right. But obviously we shouldn't be so stupid and fussy. Like they've got to have a certain color of hair, a certain color of eyes, they've got to be a certain height, and it's like well just average looking to attractive, if I get
Mm,
that. And I guess for women, well, not shorter than me, right? Because there's something almost
mm.
intolerable for a woman to go out with a man who is shorter than her. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
I'm
just
pretty
admit
short,
that
by the
women
way.
have higher standards than men, right?
Yeah,
Women, but they do need to be fussy because, I think it's probably related to, I don't know, the amount of sperm available and the number of eggs
yeah,
available. That's the kind of, that's why women are fussier, I guess.
yeah, but a lot of propaganda and stuff on social media making them more fussy than they should be. But
Yes. And the
yeah,
government should do something about it. And I know the Chinese government have been, trying to say things like, are you one of those leftover women? Are you one of those
oh yeah,
leftover men? Well, we're going to be doing something about you.
yeah,
You
yeah.
sort of scare tactics from the government, but actually the government is not doing it. I think the Chinese government care more about the Chinese than Western governments care about the average Western voter.
I'm looking at the comments, the actual questions, or I don't know. There's Jews are a misfortune, and Ahmadinejad has been declared a liar. These I'm not sure how this can. So I want to respond to them. I mean, I feel they're both in the category of eager to blame the world for your problems, sort of thing. But maybe I'm wrong. But who cares if Muhammad Hijab is a liar? And okay, what are you going to do about the fact that Jews are our misfortune? Are you some sort of permanent victim or something? I am going to have a chat this Sunday about why Israeli society has become so evil, because I'm going to play a podcast where they openly say they don't care if Gazan babies are killed, right? They're like, oh, that's really funny. And they actually quite enjoy it. So that's an interesting angle. I don't know what I could say about that in a few minutes, but I think I'm going to say two interesting opposite things about Jews. Jews, I think in the Quran it says that we're actually created biologically into different groups. Jews are a certain kind of group, and they seem to be very clever, but I think they also come with certain weaknesses. And I think they're quite scared group, don't you think? Like
Well,
they
I
seem.
don't envy them. I mean, this is what I can't get over. It's like, if you envy them so much, become one of them. But
I don't envy
just
them. I just
a
think
lot of
that
people do envy them.
I think they have a function. Jews have a function, but they're kind of like this. Okay, so if you like, I live in Jordan, where you're surrounded by Arabs, and they're very giving. They'll give stuff for free, whatever. They're kind of the opposite of Jews. Right, Jews are famously like stingy, whatever, but they do represent a sort of a mentality of the typical Westerner who is very individualistic, where Arabs are very collectivistic. And so I suppose my point is something like when you're like a Jew, maybe this is kind of, there's lots of very good Jews. So I'm kind of trying to understand how Israeli society has become so evil. It's kind of this and just in the background is that they get a lot of freebies. Like being a Jew in Israel, you get free healthcare, you get free everything, whatever, right? They're scared of losing it. That's why I say that Jews are very scared people deep down. I think it's part of being very intellectual. You become not very strong physically, and therefore you're scared of the world. And so what's happened is they've kind of abused their power for a long time. And it's
In
a bit
what
like...
way? What do you mean by being
They
bankers?
use their intelligence to overpower the indigenous population, and nobody's able to fight back, and therefore they're abusing it. Like killing children is abusing your power, isn't it? That's what I mean. Like,
I suppose my view of what's happening in Gaza is that
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Jews
The killing
wouldn't
of,
have been
like,
able to do any of that without the unwavering support of America. So I'm saying, it's
everybody.
actually
No, I don't think
Jew
many.
and Gentile.
I don't think many people think America is. How do you put it? They just. I think most people see at least Israel as a parasitic society. It's not serving. It's not like you were saying. Like what do you say? Like a
I
state
say it's
that.
an American colony. And people
Yeah, I
just don't
wouldn't say it
realize.
that
I mean,
way.
it's the only way to make sense of it. They're
The
doing
way
it
I make
in
sense of it, because
cahoots with the
it's not
Americans.
useful to America. It's making America really unpopular and causing America to. It's like most Americans are really poor.
Yeah,
Okay,
but the
Israel
working
is
classes
costing
of America
America.
don't care. They want to control international shipping, and Israel has, is very important in terms of controlling the sea lanes. And actually, to be fair to the Americans, the British have had their eye on Israel for a long time. They even created a religion called British Israelism in the hope of getting all these British Gentiles to go and live in Israel to fight the Arabs and keep an eye on the region and the oil. I think we mentioned the poem Jerusalem, which is based on a poem by William Blake.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't. Did you ever? Did you do
Yeah,
the
we talked
Eastern
about it a couple
question?
of times, isn't it?
Yeah.
I better go though.
Oh
Because
dear.
I've got a super tight schedule today, endless things happening. But we should keep this up.
Yes, we can continue discussing what we've been discussing next time.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about the Jews since they're so popular. But anyway,
It's very good for viewing
or the other
figures.
word. But anyway, all right. Take care.
All
Thank you
right.
very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
So nobody's coming to join me? All right, then. I guess I'll end the stream. What should I? Perhaps I should say a few things that I maybe didn't get the chance to be clear about. Thank you, whoever it was who told me about the Mohammed hijab. Thank you, Steve, for telling me about the libel trial that Mohammed hijab lost. I don't think it's a good idea. Okay. I tried telling David Irving that him getting a judge-only trial for his libel case against Deborah Lipstadt was a terrible error. And he might have thought he was saving money at the time, but in the end he lost. And his judgment was contained in a 300-page document. The reasons for his decision was contained in the 300-page document, which I think is conclusive evidence that he was going to give reasons that are not sound in order to find in favour of Deborah Lipstadt. And this is my view of British justice, as we call it. And I'm not the only one. So I'm afraid all the links I gave you about the trial of Muhammad Hijab is behind a paywall. So I can't really read it out. Maybe a bit later, I guess. I will get the details of it. But okay, but I'll tell you what I think about why a jury is absolutely essential if you're going to receive justice in a libel trial, and why traditionally they were there. And the litigants would probably think, oh no, everything's got to be slowed right down because the juries are dumb, and it'll take more time, more days in court, and oh, the cost. And they might think, oh wow, it's a court, it's just one judge. It'll be over in a matter of a day because a judge will instantly understand all the arguments and find in favour of the right party. And I'm afraid it doesn't work like that these days because the judge could, just not get it. We know the famous mention of some judge saying, the Beatles? What are the Beatles? I can look that up for you, actually. Judge who asked, what are the Beatles? Yes, it was Judge James Pickles. And yes, the media laughed at him. So basically, they're saying, if you don't know about these basic things because you're living so far apart from ordinary people, you are in no position to give justice in a libel trial because there are certain words that are normal for a certain class of people, and they would be fine, they'd be found defamatory or not found defamatory according to the behaviour, and blah blah blah. So that's why you had to have a jury in a libel trial. And another case of injustice that I particularly remember was Stanley Berko. She was married to the Speaker. She is, I think, as far as I know, is still married to John Berko, who was so she was a Labour supporter and he was a Conservative, and she had a Twitter account, as it was then called, and she liked to say a lot of things, which obviously got her into trouble. And there was James McAlpine, who is now dead. He was accused or rumoured to have to be a paedophile, and so there was some mention about him, and she tweeted. I think funny face or sad face or happy face, something like that. It was only an emoji. She didn't say anything, but she was still found guilty of defamation. And I think that is completely wrong. And now I have the pleasure of welcoming MENJ, who's just had his dinner.
Did you miss the fun?
Well, I think you came just at the right time. So anyway, Khaled is just, I think he's gone to have his prayers, to do his prayers. So he may even come back. But welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to show a sample cover. Can I switch on the camera? Yeah, my book. Yeah, so this is the sample copy, right?
But it's not in English.
Yeah, so I'll be getting the 100 copies next week. God willing. So my printer has confirmed that. So I can start selling next week. But yeah, it's in Malay. So I guess it will be for a limited audience for those who only know the Malay language.
But then you can have it translated into English
True,
by,
but
by
when I think about it, I might need to actually rewrite everything from. I mean, use this as a base, of course, but I need to rewrite and approach the issue with English speakers in mind, because my book is very, very localized. So if I were to
Mhm.
translate it word for word or passage per passage into English directly from the Malay, there's some context, local context, which an international reader will not be able to grasp. It will be very
Mhm,
difficult,
mhm.
or very difficult for someone who's not a Malaysian, especially, to understand. So, like for example, the Allah issue, the issue of translating, of using the word Allah in the Malay language, that is something which international users might find strange. Why are Malaysian Muslims making such a huge deal over this, even though Allah is something which Arab Christians has been using for many, many years in the Arabic language? So it shouldn't be a problem if anyone wants to use Allah, even though they are not a Muslim, right? But in the specific Malaysian Muslim context, there's a reason why why the word Allah can only be used by Muslims. Yeah, there's a localized and
To
there's a
prevent it being
cultural
translated,
context to it. Yeah.
to prevent them from being converted into Catholicism. So you're basically saying you should these Catholics who are trying to convert Malaysians should use Tuhan, right?
It's not really about it's not really about conversion per se. It's more about the usage of the term and how the term is being used with respect. So, in the context of Christians, when they say Allah, they mean it in the terms of the generic word God in English. Whereas for Muslims, especially Malaysian Muslims, we view the word Allah. Well, not me specifically, but we Muslims in general in Malaysia will view the word as something much more uh than just a generic word for God. It will actually be almost on par with a unique name, right? And only you can't, like for example, you can't call the Buddha Allah, for example, or you can't call Brahma Allah, or you can't call some Tom and Dick and Harry Allah. You see, it's not generic. It's something unique in reference to the one true God of Abraham. Whereas for the Christians, especially Malay speaking Christians, they view it as something generic. You can just call anything Allah. You see, but of course, when they use Allah, they pair it with Tuhan Allah, or Jesus Allah, for example, Jesus Allah, for example. So
Mhm.
they pair it with something else, and they refer to that as their God, for example. So this is a usage which is uh, quite offensive to a Muslim, especially. So
Well,
the recommended.
the Trinity is offensive to both Jews and Muslims. I mean,
I
let's be
mean,
honest about it.
I mean, offense. Sorry, I need to contextualize that. I mean, offensive to a Malaysian Muslim. I don't mean Muslims necessarily. An Arab Muslim I know wouldn't even care whether a Christian uses the word Allah or not, because the word Allah is just a word in Arabic. But in the Malay language, especially, uh, it's a very sensitive word to use, and there's, like I said, there's a localized context to it in terms of religiosity and also the culture. Yeah, so that's what I mean.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I
But
mean,
by
I
the way,
don't.
having said that, that doesn't mean I necessarily agree with it, but that's how things are. Yeah.
Well, I do remember, from childhood, lots of people who were obviously not Muslims saying things like "Alamak." So
Yeah. So
it's because
that's
of
how things are. Mm,
the vowels, I suppose, that lend these
mm,
words to an
mm,
exclamation. But with
mm,
regard to Jews, the kind of, even when they write God, it'd be God, G
yeah.
hash um, hyphen D, to sort of show extreme respect, and then they refer to God. Well, they don't. Well, they say Hashem, and it means the name. So they kind of have all these sort of protective layers to kind of show that it's only a Jew who would talk about Hashem, while everybody else uses their kind of not so polite words about God. Um, you know.
Because that's part of the Ten Commandments. You shall not take the Lord's or God's name in vain. So The Jews somehow interpret it as meaning that you can't just simply call upon God however you want, whenever you want. So that is why when they use the word God, they G-D, or they replace it with Adonai, or they use the word Hashem or something else. So this is in relation to the Ten Commandments. So in the Islamic context or in the Muslim mind, that doesn't happen, obviously. So we can call upon Allah however we want. Obviously, we're not supposed to use it in a sacrilegious form. You can call upon God however and whenever we need God to hear us. Okay. So as long as it's not used in a sacrilegious context, it's totally fine to do so. Yeah, we don't have this particular law where it says that you shall not take the Lord's name in vain, for example. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I sort of see it as a kind of opportunity missed, because I mean, I know that in the Malaysian context, it is offensive to Malaysian Muslims for Catholics to call the Catholic God, as no doubt you will think of the Christian God, Allah. But you could have made a huge fuss. It's like we don't want you to do that, because when you say Allah, you mean Jesus, and it is blasphemy and idolatry, and that would be, well, maybe you can start doing that. I don't know, because that is the offense,
Yeah.
the reason for the offense, right?
Personal opinion is that I don't mind if the Christians were to use the word Allah anyway, because to me, Allah is a reference to the one true God of Abraham, and whether we want to admit it or not, the Christians do worship the one true God of Abraham. It's just that they believe that this one God of Abraham also has three personalities, has a schizophrenic problem where this particular God is split into three, and one of them being in a human form. So, but regardless, they still refer, or this when they say God, they are still referring, or in their mind they think they are referring to the one true God of Abraham. See, so since Muslims also worship the same God of Abraham, and Jews too also worship the same God of Abraham, I don't see any problem for anyone, regardless whatever language it is, to use the word. Whatever peoples it is, regardless whether you are Malay, Muslim, or otherwise, to use the word Allah. You see, yeah. So I personally have no problems with that. However, as I said, there's a local context, there's a cultural issue related to this. So that is why I mentioned this in the book, in the book on Paul that I wrote. So I did mention that the Christians do realize that Malay Muslims take the word Allah seriously, so they try to exploit this by using Islamic terms, or terms which only Muslims often use, like for example Qiblah. In the Malay language, it will be Qiblat, or Wahyu. Wahyu means revelation, but it's often used by Muslims. And Solat. Okay, Solat is a specific term which refers to the Muslim form of prayer. You can actually there's an alternative word for it in Malay, which is Sembahyang, which is quite generic, and every religion uses it. Every religion can use it. But for the Christians, when they use certain terms like Solat and everything, they have a missionizing intention in mind. So that is why I think, which makes the Malay Muslims a bit cautious to allow Christians to use such terms. And that is why also when Christians Malaysian Christians insist on using the word Allah in their Malay liturgy, that caused quite a ruckus among the Malay Muslims. Yeah.
For using which
this is the
words?
context. Allah especially, yeah.
Right. So I noticed when I was doing all these sort of Google Translate into Malay for you, that what is it? Sembahyang berhala is the
Sembahyang means
technical word for idolatry, is it?
No, I think the grammar is a bit wrong. Usually you just say penyembah berhala, for example. Yeah, you don't say sembahyang berhala. That's grammatically incorrect. The more grammatically correct phrase would be penyembah berhala. Yeah, it means idol worshippers. Yeah.
Penyembah berhala.
Yeah. Yes,
But,
that's
but
right.
I
Yeah.
suppose you're going to be rude about it. It'd be Sembayang Patong.
Sorry.
Sembayang Patong. It would be
Yeah,
the rudest way
some
of.
yeah. Sembahyang is just a generic term for prayer, so it can be used by anyone, whether you are Muslim or Christian or Jew
Mhm.
or Buddhist or Taoist. You just use the word sembahyang. Even in fact, sometimes in colloquial speech, you will find that Malay Muslims also use the word sembahyang, but we also use the word solat interchangeably with the word sembahyang. So if you want to be a bit more, I guess
It
you
is
want to a
Muslim
bit
prayer,
more
not
yeah. So
yeah.
if you want to be a bit more specific, then you say solat. So then it's pretty much understood that it's a reference to the Muslim prayer only. When you are a Christian, when you say sembahyang, it is understood that you'll be doing the Christian prayer, not the Muslim prayers. You see. So when
Mm.
if a Christians were to say solat, a Malay Muslim would actually be wondering whether this Christian is, wanting to be a Muslim, or is he just using the word,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
be offensive. Yeah. So that's the localized context to it.
Yes. No, I've just heard it described as Sembayang Patong,
Yeah,
which
sembahyang
is
is a
the
generic word.
rudest.
So that's used universally by all religions. So it's not a problem.
No, but praying to dolls, idols, would Sembayang Patong is
Sembahyang,
the,
no, we don't use the word patung. We will use the word berhala. Berhala is idol worship. Yeah, it's much more. Patung can be a reference to dolls, like a
yes,
child's doll, for example. You
yes,
don't,
yes.
so so it's not how would I say, accurate to refer to a idol as in terms of an idol in worship as patung, because it's not that is wrong. It's just that you can be more grammatically accurate, or you can be more precise by using the word berhala, so it's a bit more clearer in meaning. Yeah.
What does Berhala mean? I thought Hala means
Idol.
direction.
It means idol. An idol used for worship. Yeah. So it's berhala.
Oh, I thought Berhala meant direction.
No, it means idol, as in an idol specifically used for worship. You can't, for example, call a child's doll as berhala. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, you can call an idol used in worship as patung, as well as uh, a child using a doll for play. You can call that as patung as well, but you can't use the word berhala for the child's doll. You can only use that for an idol used in worship. Yeah, so like I said, it's a bit more
Right.
specific. Yeah, but patung is a bit more generic, I guess you could say. It's like covering all types of idols, including child's dolls or whatever, children's dolls or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah, you can
Yes.
even call a teddy bear patung, you see? But
Yes.
you can never
Yes.
call it, but you can't call a teddy bear berhala. It doesn't make it will make no logical sense. Do you worship a teddy bear?
Hmm. Oh, there is an island called Berhala Island in Sabah.
I wouldn't know about that. Perhaps there is. I don't know. Maybe
Yes,
it's just
I
a
mean,
name.
I'm
Yeah.
just sort of trying to look up the actual term of because doesn't hala mean direction in Malay as well?
Sorry?
Doesn't hala mean direction in Malay?
Pulau means island.
No, but hala, HALA, doesn't it mean
Oh, no. Berhala
direction?
means no. Berhala means an idol. Yeah, an idol used in worship. That's what it
Oh,
means.
I seem to remember the road sign saying one-way street something, isn't it?
Oh, that is Sir Hala. Sorry, that's a different
Oh,
word. Yeah.
Sahala. Okay.
Sir Hala. Yeah, that's a different word. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Right. But yes,
Okay.
I
I
mean the
just
Jews are
found
quite rude. Hmm?
Yeah, I just found the wiki page on Berhala Island. So yeah, I didn't know about this island. So I guess they call it that because maybe it looks like an idol. I don't know. I wouldn't
Yeah,
know
oh, I
why
mean
they call it
the
that. Yeah.
two. There's one in Sumatra and one in Sabah. So I don't know that
Oh yeah.
islands or
Yeah, I wouldn't
idols.
know about the one. I wouldn't know about the one in Sumatra, but I guess it's the Nusantara region anyway. So there will be some name similarities of localities. So that's not strange in the region.
Mm.
Mm.
Talking about the Indonesians, I wonder if you could do you know about the decline of the Majapahit Empire? because before the region was Muslim, it was under the Majapahit Empire. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit of history about that.
I know a bit of it. So there were two Hindu Buddhist empires, the Srivijaya Empire, which is based in Sumatra, and the Majapahit Empire, as you mentioned, which is based in Java, in the island of Java and the areas around it. So these two empires were warring against each other. Okay, they had competing interests, so they were always at war. I don't really know this. I don't really remember the specifics, but yeah, there was one point. At one point, the Srivijaya Empire was defeated, and the king of Srivijaya escaped to what we now know as Singapore. So it wasn't known as Singapore at the time; it was called Temasek. So this king established his kingdom in exile on the island of Temasek. Then the Majapahit armies came to the Singapore island or the Temasek kingdom, as it was called then, and defeated the king there, and he had to escape up north to what we now know as Malacca. So this king, so this former king of Srivijaya, and then he became the former king of Temasek, and when he went up north to Malacca, he formed the Malacca Kingdom. And then several decades later, the first traders from the Arab world came to the region. And long story short, they converted the king. It could be a descendant of the king. We don't really know. Some historians say it was the same king that escaped from Singapore or Temasek. Some kings say some records say that it was a different king. It was his son, perhaps. So whatever it was, whoever it was, this king reverted to Islam, and everyone else followed suit. And then that was how Malacca became an Islamic kingdom. And then Malacca continued growing. It became an entry port. So there were traders coming all over the world, from India, from China, from the Arab world, trading at Malacca, and Malacca grew to become a powerful empire. But around this time period, the Majapahit Empire was already going towards a downward trend, and they were eventually defeated by I think it was the Sultanate Kingdom of Demak, if I'm not mistaken. They defeated the Majapahit Empire, and then things just continue on a upward trajectory until the first Christians came to the region, and then colonialism happened, and so on.
So I think we can see that that maybe Islam is a more effective at organizing warfare.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. You know, as you know, world history is such that there will always be a time when empires go up, and then there will be also a period where empires will eventually go down. So this was what happened to the Malacca Empire. In the case of Malacca, it was the Portuguese, the first Christians who came to the region, who caused the downfall of the empire, because they invaded Malacca in 1511 and literally destroyed the city and took over everything. And pretty much the king was pretty much the Sultan of Malacca was literally throneless. So he had to retreat to Bintan, the area of Riau. Today it is known as Riau, but back then it was known as Bintan. So he formed another government in exile, and then eventually it grew to become the Johor Empire. And then the Johor Empire was always at war with the Portuguese, but it could never defeat it. And then several centuries later, the Dutch came, and then another several centuries later, the British came. So yeah, so that's how things were at that time. Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about Sumatra, have you ever been to Aceh province?
I wish I could, but I've never been there. Yeah, I believe I have a great grandfather who came from the region. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sort of vaguely aware that there's some sort of the story of Hang Tuo. Apparently,
Okay.
there've been some changes in the story or something, but I'm very vague about the details. Do you know anything
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, because right now there's kind of a dispute between scholars. Some say Hang Tuo is a mythological figure. Some say that Hang Tuo was a real person. So it's pretty much in flux here. So we don't really have any evidence for the existence of Hang Tuo. By the way, this is all mythology which was passed down from one generation to the next, and it was eventually recorded in Suratus Salatin, Sejarah Melayu. As I'm not
Mhm.
sure whether you're familiar with the work. Yeah, it was actually translated by Raffles into English.
Oh,
Sir Stamford Raffles, yeah, Thomas
right.
Stamford Raffles. So
Of
he
of
translated that
Raffles
into English.
Hotel in Singapore.
Yes, the alleged founder of Singapore, even though Singapore was already founded before him. Okay,
Mhm.
so that guy translated Sejarah Melayu into English, and it was called Suratus Salatin. So the only evidence we have for the story of Hang Tuah is actually in this work, as well as another uh, work which was called Hikayat Hang Tuah. But these were all written like several centuries after the time of Malacca. Okay, so we don't really know. Pretty much similar to how the Bible was compiled. So we don't really know whether this figure Hang Tuah is existed. You see, so we don't really have any real evidence outside of this text. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I've noticed some people, deny the existence of Jesus, and some people want to deny the
Yeah.
existence of
Yeah,
Muhammad,
yeah.
and
So,
make it.
so this is I guess they use the same historical critical method to even deny the existence of Hang Tuah. But for me, it's fine. It doesn't matter whether Hang Tuah existed or not. The most important thing is that uh, Islam is still alive, is still around, thanks to the generations that came before mine, before my fathers, before my forefathers. So, and also thanks to the Arab traders who came to the region, because without them, the region would not have become Muslim. Okay, there's no way that this region, when I say this region, I meant Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, Southern Thai, Southern Philippines, Singapore. I don't think if Islam has not reached to this area through traders, I think this region would have remained Hindu Buddhist throughout the centuries, because the Arab armies were too far to come to this area to invade. Because if you look at the history, you will know that. Of course, I believe you already know this. The Middle East. How was the Middle East Islamized? Because the Arab armies came out from the Khilafah
Mhm,
era, right? So they conquered
mhm.
Syria, they conquered Iraq, they conquered Egypt, uh, uh, Persia, and so on. But they never, and India, even up to India, okay? But they never went beyond that borders. So it was through the efforts of the Arab traders that came to this region, which was why Islam was able
Mhm,
to spread in this area. So for that reason, I thank those Arab traders, whoever they were.
mhm.
Whoever they were, I thank them very, very much. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I think, I mean, if you ask women, it's like, you know, in that region, would you prefer to be a woman in Thailand, or a woman in Malaysia, or a woman in Singapore? Um, I think Malaysia would be the hot favorite. Just because, well,
Um,
women are more respected in Malaysia, and maybe Singaporean women are, kind of considered
because
difficult.
I'm a Malaysian, obviously I'm going to say Malaysia, right? I mean, I'm already pretty much used to the life here. I mean, life in
Mm,
Malaysia is pretty much peaceful. There are no wars here. Obviously, there are political controversies once in a while. You'll find people coming to the streets chanting. There was a recent demonstration, by the way, against the current prime minister several weeks ago.
oh
So
yes, what was
apart
that
from
about?
it was basically a group, several political parties, the opposition actually, coming to the Merdeka Square and chanting Turun Anwar," which means
Down
down
with
with Anwar,
Anwar.
down with Anwar. Yeah, it means down with Anwar. Yeah, so they want Basically, no, it doesn't mean down with Anwar. Sorry, in this context, it means step down Anwar. Step down Anwar. They want the prime minister to resign. So that's basically what the purpose of the uh demonstration was. So that was fun. I miss the days
Who
when I
do they
was
want to take over?
part of sorry.
Who do they want to take over from Anwar?
Oh, that's a good question. I think they themselves wouldn't know, but my personal choice would obviously be certain leaders in past, but that's not up to me to decide, right? But frankly, the sentiment is real. By the way, we are not really happy with how the current prime minister is handling things here locally, domestically in Malaysia. So prices are going up. Okay, salaries are still stagnant, job opportunities are very low. Okay, in fact, I would say almost stagnant and almost zero. And even though the prime minister goes from one country hopping from one region to another, he was 1 minute you will find him in Europe, the next he will be in South America, but you don't really see anything trickling from that onto the ground. I don't feel the effects of it. I don't see any economic, benefits
Well,
gained from it.
I
So
think what's
yeah.
yeah, I think what's
Sorry.
really happening is that the Americans are exporting their inflation because the dollar is the world reserve currency because everybody has to buy their oil in dollars, and the reason why the America is getting so aggressive now is that Big BRICS is coming up and they don't want these potentially quite powerful countries to have their own currency, and so America can no longer export its inflation to the rest of the world. But and that's why I want Muslims all over the world to support secular Quranism, because when America sorts itself out, it will be just a more just country. But right now, it's going crazy because they know their empire is wobbling, and
Yeah.
they think they have to strike first before they get any weaker, before people realize the enormity of the fraud that has been perpetrated on them. But if the Americans sort themselves out, then everybody else will, because the Europeans are just the poodles, the vassal states of America, including Canada and Australia. They just do whatever America tells them to, and now they're beginning to think about whether it benefits them that much. And
Yeah,
I
but
think
you see, the thing is, I guess you could say that generally speaking, Malaysians don't really care for international politics. All we care about is to continue our livelihood as it is, and basically have a relaxed and stable life. So for
but they
that
have to think
reason,
about international politics because it affects
nah,
them.
Malaysians are frankly very much isolated from. I mean, with the
They've got a
exception of
US naval base in
well,
Singapore. Come on. There's a US
yeah, no,
naval base in Singapore. So it
yeah, nobody
controls the
cares.
traffic going up.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they don't
yeah,
understand. But you show them a
yeah,
map,
yeah.
and you tell them how a global
Mm,
empire would work. And of
mm,
course, you want to control
mm,
all the
mm,
choke points. And this includes
yeah,
the Straits of Hormuz, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean. That is why Israel is so important to the Americans. Because and
yeah.
it's prestige as
You
well,
see,
right?
the problem is that Malaysians have been living a pretty much stable and peaceful life. I would say. I mean, what major wars can you name in the region, right? I mean, apart from the Vietnam War and apart from the Vietnam War, what other war can you name in that
Okay,
that,
you
that has
have to go
happened to
back
the
to
region? You
the
see,
the
yeah. So
communist insurgency
yeah,
and the
yeah,
you know
even
Japanese
if you
occupation.
mentioned even if you mentioned that, because the communist agents insurgency was mostly fought in the jungles, and
Mm.
and that was very much isolated from many Malaysian cities. So even back then, nobody really felt the effects of that. Okay? I mean, obviously the army, the police personnel, their families felt the effect because their husbands, their brothers, their uncles, their fathers were away fighting the communists in the jungle. Yes, that's given. But for the rest of the plebs, okay, those who are not involved in, or do not have any relatives involved in the fighting or against the insurgency, the communist insurgency, I would say that that was relatively peaceful and a relaxed atmosphere. So there was no real tension, you know, being felt by the rest of the population. Yeah. So the insurgency was from 1960s right up until the 80s, and then the communists were pushed back into deeper into the jungle, and they had to retreat to southern Thailand. So the fighting continued in southern Thailand, but by then the communists were already very much weakened because there were a lot of defections, and many of their own guerrilla fighters died in the fighting as well. So, and there was no new blood, there was no new personnel coming in to fill up the ranks. So in the end, they just decided to basically surrender, I guess, in a if you look at it that way. And they
Mhm.
signed the agreement, the Hat Yai agreement it was in 1986, I think, or was it 1989? I don't really remember now. But yeah,
Mhm.
it was between that time period. So yeah, basically the communists were defeated by I guess technically you could say the communists were defeated by 1989. So yeah, there
But
was
by the
no
but by the
major
success and affluence of Malaysia, I
sorry?
imagine. By the
Sorry?
success and affluence of Malaysia. I mean, because you only communism is only attractive to people who feel very poor and want to take the property of their ruling
So
classes because
yeah.
the
That's right.
messes
That's
things
right.
up.
So yeah, so in the 70s and in the 80s, we had a new economic policy, so that kind of changed a lot economically. Okay, say
Mhm,
what you will about the policy, which is a bit favorable to the Bumiputras, but it helped a lot of people, including my father, and it
mhm,
gave a lot of people a good education, a good livelihood, and it helped the country economically. And we would not be here today. Malaysia would not be the country it is today without to a certain extent the NEP, yeah, new
mhm,
economic
mhm.
policy. Well, I mean, I myself personally, there are some parts in the NEP I wouldn't agree with, but no one can deny that the NEP actually helped a lot of Malaysians, and yeah, that also contributed to the defeat of the communists as well, as you mentioned earlier.
Mhm. So what is I mean, Dr. Muhammad Mahathir is now 100 years old and he's still tweeting.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe the guy's a Dracula because I really don't understand why he could live this long. Every day, each day after 1998 happened, I was praying for him to die, and yet he's still alive.
Oh, you don't
A
like
lot.
him?
Of course, I don't like him.
Why not?
Why should I? Why should I like him? He
Well,
almost
I thought you
destroyed
were
the
just
country.
praising his NEP a moment ago.
It wasn't his NEP. You see, NEP was formed by Razak, by Tun Razak. Tun Razak was the one who started the NEP.
Oh, right.
Tun Razak and his cabinet. So among them being Tun Dr. Ismail, as well as I think Kir Johari contributed and several others. Yeah. But it wasn't Mahathir. Mahathir did not join the cabinet until much later. Yeah.
Oh, right. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess he's tweeting about Anwar Turun Anwar, I guess.
I think the guy is so obsessed with Anwar, he just, hates the guy, even though, ironically, he won the elections in 2018 because people were fed up of Najib and they wanted basically Anwar's coalition to take over. So at the time, the current prime minister was in prison, right? So the coalition decided, the opposition coalition at the time decided to allow for the old man to lead, and he won because of that sentiment. And now this guy is making a lot of noise, and he wants, Anwar to step down or whatever. But he should keep in mind that his era is already over. He's 100 years old. Well, for one thing, nobody lives that long. It's not common for people to live that long. And secondly, his era has long passed. He's living in a he was living in a different century. He lived in a different century. Sorry, this is the 21st century. This is already 2025. His era is over. So his line of thought, his ideology, whatever that may be, is already past its expiry date. So yeah, I wouldn't put much stock into whatever he says actually.
Well, I suppose he's remembered fondly because he was there for, 20 years or so. And I guess he must have done a few things. I mean, in the West, he's particularly remembered like, wow, he said what he said about George Soros. And we love him because he got away with it,
Yeah, that, like I
So,
said, that was an era past. That was in the 1990s, right? 1990s, 2000s. But that was like how many years ago? 20 years ago? 25 years
mhm,
ago? I was just a young, imagine this. When I was
mhm,
6 years old, he was the prime minister. When I was 18 years old, he was still the prime minister. When I was 25 years old, okay, he stepped down, but he's not the prime minister anymore. But he he still was making a lot of noise. He was making a lot of blog posts against Pakla. I think you remember Abdul Ahmad Badawi. And then when Najib took over, he was making a lot of noises against Najib because of the 1MDB scandal. And then in 2018, when I was around 38 years old, uh, he became prime minister again. And my son, who was just 8 years old, also experienced the same prime minister that I had when I was 8 years old, which is quite really ironic. Okay,
mhm,
and my father, who was I think he was around 40 years old when Mahathir first became prime minister. My father at the time in 2018, he was 66, 70 years old. He was pushing 70. And Mahathir became the prime minister again. So 3 generations in my family experienced the same prime minister. What are the
mm.
chances of that?
Well, I mean,
What are the chances of that?
it's certainly none in the West because, prime ministers and presidents are like queues outside a public convenience or a bus stop. So
Yeah,
nobody can
yeah,
remember their names. Um,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I think Mahathir's situation is very unique, you see, because of his longevity, whatever. I don't know
mm.
what medication he took, but I just hope that he stops it and he just rolls over and dies.
What do you dislike about his policy? Maybe I wasn't listening properly.
I think it's best if we leave that for a different live stream because if I were to rant on about Mahathir, I
Okay, we'll
think
never
it's
have
going to take too much of your time. Anyway, I think I should take my leave now because I need to do something else. I'm sorry, Claire, I can't stay for long.
Okay, but thank you for all the information. I have too many questions to ask you. I was going to ask you about Muhyiddin Yassin, but I've
I
just
think we should,
realised that
yeah,
he
I
wasn't
think we should
prime
leave that.
minister.
Yeah, I
So
think we should leave that for a
he's
different
an
live stream.
ethno-nationalist, isn't he?
Sorry,
He's an
what do you?
ethno-nationalist, isn't he?
Um, I would say, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, he's more ethnocentric. Yeah, he's
Hmm.
more an he's more of a nationalist, Malay nationalist. And at one point, he said that I'm Malay first and Malaysian second. You see, so yeah, so I guess you could say that. Yeah, he is ethnocentric. Yeah.
Yeah, and before you go, I just wanted to mention that Muhammad Mahathir wrote 2 books, and the first book was The Malay Dilemma, and then later it became The Malaysian Dilemma. So it goes from ethno to civic nationalist, and yeah, I'm just going to make the argument that I suppose Islam is civic nationalist, although ethno nationalists can use it for their
Yeah.
own benefit.
Yeah. So I in the Malaysian context, Islam has often been used by the ethnocentric nationalists as a tool, as a political weapon. You see, even though
Yeah.
someone may claim to be an ethnocentric Malaysian or ethnocentric Malaysian, they would
Mhm.
still need to rely on Islam as a political weapon or as a political tool to enhance their ethnocentrism. Because in the Malay mind, in the Malay Muslim mind, especially, to be a Malay is to be a Muslim, and to be a Muslim is to be a Malay. So both are uh, interchangeable and both are inseparable. You can't be a Malay without being a Muslim. So let's say
What
if
if
a
you're a Malay
Malay.
and you want to convert to Christianity? Surely that has
Exactly.
happened.
I was going to talk about that. Yeah. So if let's say a Malay decides to become a Christian or he decides to become a Hindu, then in the Malay mind, in the Malay Muslim mind, that person ceases to become a Malay. I know it's odd, but that's how the
Oh.
Muslim things. Yeah. So if you become a Christian, even though you're ethnically a Malay, you are a Christian, but you're not a Malay. You see?
It's a bit like the Jews, right? Because it's sort of, can you be a Jew and convert to Christianity? Do you change your race just because you change your religion? That kind of thing. Is it?
Yeah, I think for them it's not a problem. For them, you can still remain as a Jew and yet you are an atheist. I mean, if you look at the history of Zionism, for example, the founder of Zionism was an atheist, and yet he's still being hailed as the founder of Israel, as the founder of Zionism. In fact, people attribute, you know, uh, the uh, the spread of Zionism, or the expansion of Israel, to this guy who was an atheist, who didn't believe in God, and yet claimed that the land belongs to the Jews because of a 4,500-year-old text, which he doesn't believe in, by the way, to be a divine inspiration. So that's the
But it's
irony
just
there
like,
for you. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was just going to say quickly that the moment the Jews were kicked out of Israel, there was created an immediate desire for return, and I guess if Jews want to have a homeland, they need the cooperation of the Gentile, right? Otherwise it can't be done, because they're only 1% of the total human population, and there are all these powerful empires in the region. Using Islam or Christianity as their religion. So I guess a Jew would have to, is it Christians or Muslims who are going to, give me my homeland? I'll have to go with whoever gives me my homeland, kind of thing.
Yeah, you see, in the Muslim mind, we don't consider the region of Palestine to be exclusively the Jewish homeland. There's no homeland for the Zionists or for the Jews anymore. Is there a homeland for Muslims, or anymore is there a homeland for Christians? Because there are sacred areas. Obviously, I mean, Jerusalem is considered holy by all three Abrahamic religions. We do accept that. Mecca is holy to Muslims. Everyone accepts that. Okay, so the Vatican is holy to Catholic Christians. We accept that, but we don't say, oh, this particular region is only for Muslims. Oh, this particular region is only for Jews. Oh, this particular region is only for Christians. We don't accept that kind of ideology, or that kind of sentiment. Yeah, even one can, yeah. So even you can't even say that Saudi Arabia, for example, is a homeland only for exclusively for Muslims, even though the sacred ground, when I say the haram area, is forbidden to non-Muslims, but that doesn't mean that it's a homeland as how it is understood by the Zionists, to be exclusively for Muslims only. Okay, so that is how the understanding is. Of course, there is a hadith which says that non-Muslims are overall forbidden from from establishing their presence in the Arabia, and in the what we now know as Saudi. Okay, but this is open to interpretation. Okay, I mean, we do have Christians in Jeddah, in Riyadh, and anywhere else in the region anyways, but generally speaking, we don't have this concept of this idea of equating land to equating an ethno state to a particular religion or to a particular ethnicity. We don't have this. We don't have this idea. As far as we're concerned, we believe in a khilafah that they can rule as far as the land can see. Okay, and this khilafah must rule under Sharia, obviously, and basically the constitution is the Quran and the Sunnah, or the deeds and the actions of the Prophet. So this is how we see the Muslim. I mean, this is how the political view of a Muslim would be, generally speaking. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of need a Pope of Islam. So you have this the political leadership
Exactly.
that,
Exactly. Yeah.
so you can organize yourselves around it. And
Yeah.
currently the only caliph allowed is the Ahmadiyya one, and Khalid, who
Yeah,
just
we don't recognize. Yeah, we don't recognize
yeah.
the Ahmadiyya. We don't consider them to be Muslims anyway. So that's anyway.
Mm.
I think I have to go now. I'm sorry for taking up
Okay,
your time.
okay, but hopefully we can discuss more of these
Sure, sure.
very
Of course.
fascinating subjects. So next time
It is.
you
It
have
is.
time to drop by. So thank you again for coming,
Yeah.
MENJ.
Likewise. Thank you. Thank you, Claire, for having me.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.